All right, so welcome to the Political Paradigm Shift podcast. My name is Nick. I'm here with Chuck and Gerard. It's been a long time since we have done a podcast. I've been in the process of moving. I now, if people who've seen the podcast before, I'm in a different room, although it's not fully set up. That's why you have stuff all over the place. So I think today we're going to touch a bunch of topics, some modern or contemporary news related to the Memphis beating of a man there to death. There's some stuff going on in Georgia where somebody was shot and killed, but he, I guess, was the initial shooter. And then we're going to touch on some other stuff. So where do you guys want to start?
You're the host. You're sitting there in the brand new house with the brand new doorknob, brand new door, making me jealous as hell. You go first.
Yeah, make some goddamn decisions, man.
Yeah, really.
All right. So I think we can start off. Well, let's start off light because it could take a turn for the worse. So I just started reading about this, although I've been kind of thinking about it. So in terms of Biden's reelection, who here thinks that Biden, so I guess there's two questions. The first one is, should Biden run for reelection? Well, not run, I guess run for reelection. And should he continue to keep Kamala Harris as his VP pick?
I'll start.
Okay.
He's old, but I think he should still run. I mean, the criticisms of him are pretty much about the same level of any president after 4 years, vice the really big examples like Trump. Obviously, a lot more criticism after his 4-year hitch. But other than that, the level that people have complaints about Biden is about the same that every other president has about 4 years. I think he's kind of stuck with Kamala Harris. I think it hurts him more to get rid of her and bring somebody else on than it does to keep her, regardless of how weak you might think she is. And I had pretty high hopes for her. I thought she was going to be a hot ticket after seeing the way she was in the Senate, and been pretty kind of let down, since she's been VP. But dropping her and bringing somebody else on is a lot riskier. So I just think, the straight reality of it is it's going to be the same ticket again.
Yeah, if he jettisons Kamala Harris, I've always said Kamala, and I've just whenever I was first corrected, and I was like, okay, but I've gotten used to Kamala. Now it's Kamala. But no, if he jettisons her right now, then that is an absolute repudiation of her. And there are, again, it would be, she can't fuck up too much as vice president. Let's just put it that way. I mean, her ability to really screw things up is limited in that capacity. And the drawback or the pushback you would get from such an obvious slap in the face is simply not worth it. Again, if she is replaced with somebody else who does a better job as vice president, well, what exactly does that mean? Better job as vice president. I mean, again, it's second fiddle. I've been chronically unimpressed with her, as I think a lot of people have, including some diehard Democrats. But no, to jettison her right now, no. As for Biden, I guess I'm in the same court as Jared here. Why not? I mean, and right now, I mean, if you look across the Democrats' bench, so to speak, as to if not Biden, then who, there's nobody that really jumps out at you as the obvious heir apparent. Biden, I think I've mentioned this to Nick at one time in terms of his mental acuity now. Yeah, he's lost a little bit off his fastball. There's no doubt about that. Most guys do at that age. It was in 2012 when he was running for re-election as vice president. He showed up, the football team I helped coach, he showed up at a practice when they were campaigning in Danville, and we were having practice, and this 3 big black cars came down the practice field and pulled up near it, and I was like, holy shit, is one of our guys in trouble again? Which, that's happened before. But no, the stereotypical guy in the black suit, sunglasses, came over to Bobby Barton, who was our coach then, and said, "Would you guys like to have the vice president attend your practice?" And so Joe Biden stepped out, and he had a great time. He took his glasses off. You could see the light in his eyes because he's a former football player too. And we just had a hell of a time with him. The guy I see today is nowhere near what I saw in 2012. So yeah, he's lost a little bit off his fastball. But in terms of should he run again, I mean, why not? I don't see any problem with it. I'm been a bit disappointed in his presidency insofar as he's giving more than just lip service to the far left wing. I wish he would give them just lip service and nothing else. I think he's bringing them in a little bit too close, but no, quite frankly, and by default, I don't see anybody else. Gavin Newsom, maybe, whom I truly abhor. I do not like him at all. But apart from that, Pete Buttigieg, I don't know. There's only so much you can hang your hat on as a transportation secretary in terms of presidential aspirations. But I mean, for lack of anybody better, why not nominate Biden again if you're a Democrat?
Yeah, so as far as Kamala goes, I mean, the only reason I can think to sort of switch the candidate would be as a strategy for his reelection. And I mean, I guess there's politically some way you could do it, but I think the big elephant in the room here is, look, she's the first African-American woman vice president. And in the current state of the Democratic Party, the only person or the only demographic you're going to be able to replace that with is the same one, right? So you're kind of, I mean, if you tried to in any other way, you're going to get slaughtered, right, by the left. So I think it sort of, there's a lot of obstacles there if they did try to do it. Although I think it's important to point out she is like the most unpopular vice president, like more so than Dick Cheney after he shot someone in the face. Like that was like a poll I read the other day.
Damn.
So that's pretty bad. I mean, he was like known as, Darth Vader or whatever. Yeah. So that being said, as far as Biden goes, I agree with you in the sense that who the heck is going to replace Biden, right? I mean, there really isn't anybody. I think when you were saying that, Pete Buttigieg kind of came to my head, but he's like within a scandal right now. I mean, and not only that, he's super young. I don't know. He's not well known, I guess. Not so much the young part. He's just not as well known. And, I just don't think, unless they came out with some sort of superstar we don't know about, I don't think that there's anybody there that's going to, be able to replace him. The thing that I worry about for him is, number one, he's been polling relatively low, like in Trump area, for a good portion of his presidency. And it hasn't really ticked up all that much, even as inflation's going down a little bit and gas prices are going down a little bit. He doesn't seem to be making that much progress. And in terms of his age and stuff, I mean, there is a deterioration. I mean, it's very obvious, right? He doesn't have dementia, which is kind of an offensive thing to say for people who actually do have dementia. But like he's older and he's lost a step and he's not going to get better. That's not how that works, right? So I just don't know how that plays out over the next several years. But I guess if he wins the election, it doesn't really make a difference at that point. So I do, I think my concern, and this will we can shift over to the other topic, is I am okay. I can live with, I can stomach a DeSantis victory. I can pretty much stomach just about, well, I shouldn't say that. I can stomach a lot of people beating Biden on the Republican side. I can't stomach Trump. I think when you go over the options, for all of the criticisms, and a lot of them are fair, of the Biden administration, one of which I share, I think that the wokeness, him sort of, acquiescing to them and on various levels has, to be honest, I think just hurt him. I mean, Biden's whole appeal, the reason he won, in my opinion, was because he was one of the only people to kind of, stay in the center, right? And not.
He was not Trump and not anti-Trump. He was seen as a sensible,
not insane,
sure,
right? Not one of the crazy ones.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. But Trump, to me, and you could say what you want to say. I just feel like he is a legitimate. People use a lot of hyperbole these days. I hate it. I hate the conspiracy stuff. But I think that he is a legitimate existential, threat to the country. I mean, and so him, I also think that there's a lot of plausible scenarios where he wins, because he's up in a lot of polls on the Republican side over DeSantis. And he's going to get back on Facebook. He's going to get back on Instagram and likely Twitter, and he's just going to start doing what he did, right? And he's going to draw all this attention to himself. And he, for whatever reason, there's a strong base of the Republican Party who loves the guy, and he can just, he could bury. I mean, you could see one debate with him and DeSantis, and him just bury DeSantis with one line, and that's it. See you later, buddy. And I could definitely see something like that happening. And if he goes up against Biden with all the stuff that's going on with Biden, so that sort of scares me, because I think if he becomes president again, he's not going to, the people that he's going to appoint to cabinet positions, and they're not going to be, you're not going to see General Mattis and the other guys, and a lot of them weren't the greatest, but at least they were credible human beings, right? And so I don't think you'll see that this time. I think you'll see like a real extreme kind of Trumpian cabinet, and that's scary.
Yeah, Mike Lindell as Secretary of State holds no appeal to me. God knows. I'll disagree with you a little bit, but with a qualifier here, because I mean, I didn't see Trump winning in 2016 before it happened. So he's proved me wrong before. But I mean, right now, getting the Republican nomination, yeah, you can see how that might happen. Particularly, primaries are sometimes as much about energy as policy. Matter of fact, usually more often about energy and momentum. And yeah, you could see how he could steamroll his way to another nomination. In terms of being elected again, well, I can't think of a single blue voter he's going to turn red. I can't think of anyone who, say, voted for Biden in 2020 who is going to change their mind if it's Trump versus Biden 24. So I don't see where he gains what he lost in terms of the electoral, the blue wall there, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, et cetera. I don't see how he turns those blue states red again, being Trump. I think on a national standpoint, his numbers are down. Now, within the Republican Party, yeah, I mean, him, riding an emotional momentum wave to get the nomination, sure, I can see that. And as much as we're online quite a bit, we read a lot, see a lot, whatever. So we're pretty familiar with what DeSantis brings to the table. Outside of the online community like us, he's not a known commodity in most of America. He's, again, governor of Florida. Certainly in Florida, they know him. But beyond that, in terms of that national name recognition, he's still got to build that. So right now, if he's thinking about 2024, then he's not as far along as we might think he is. Now, if not DeSantis, If not Trump, then who? Then the question gets a lot murkier. The governor of my state, Glenn Youngkin, is being mentioned, and he's been pretty
Read about him.
Upfront about appearing outside Virginia, let's say, testing his national brand without saying anything. He's saying all the right things now. As governor of Virginia, you can only serve one term as governor. You can't run for re-election. So he's going to be done in 3 years anyway. So is he a possibility? Well, maybe. I thought he ran a smart campaign insofar as he kept MAGA at arm's bay, but he did not push them away. Again, he did not totally embrace the Trumpian brand, but he did not specifically repel them either. I thought he played a very smart middle ground there. Plus, he got a major gift from Terry McAuliffe, the Democratic candidate, when he said, I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach children. And in Northern Virginia, where a lot of that has been very much up in the news lately, that did not play well. Northern Virginia, very, very, very blue. That's government worker territory. And they were about 50-50 in the governor's race. So Youngkin turning that blue area purple got him the governorship. So yeah, he's a possibility. Beyond that, who knows? But DeSantis, I mean, I personally don't like him because he's just another politician who sees government as a means to an end. He sees government as a means to punish his enemies and reward his friends. Even if I do agree with him on a few things, I can't stomach someone who sees government as a tool rather than a necessary evil. But if it's between DeSantis and Biden, I mean, to me, that's not a choice. I mean, I'll have to go DeSantis then. But yeah, as much as we like to say the Democrats' bench is thin, I would submit that the Republican bench is fairly thin right now, but a whole lot can change in 12 months.
I think Trump is the biggest detriment to the Republicans taking the presidency in 2024. If he gets the nomination, I mean, while his popularity still has some legs in the Republican Party nationally, that's the only population that likes him. And I think any other candidate who gets the nomination over him isn't just going to have to fight Biden. They're also going to have to still fight Trump. I think he'll torch everything to try to make sure that he's got the nomination, that is his name on there. I mean, his whole brand the last 2 years has been that the federal presidential election was corrupt and, some big conspiracy. Why would we think he wouldn't do that with the Republican nomination?
Sure.
So I think Republicans, there are more, or maybe I should say there's probably Republicans who feel more strongly about hoping Trump gets into a little golf accident than Democrats right now.
A bizarre golf accident, I guess, like Spinal Tap.
So I think you guys make some good points. The only thing I would say, Chuck, is the one thing about 2020 was that everybody had just experienced 4 years of a roller coaster ride of a presidency. Like when I talk to people who aren't hyper online, like, some of us, one of the things that they say is like, he was just in my face all the time. Like people don't want to think about politics, and he constantly was just creating these controversies after controversy. So what I do think, and plus he scared the shit out of people. So I feel like that, it's very possible he goes and does that again, right? And so people kind of get motivated. But I just think like sort of all of the, and all of the violence and the rioting and everything else just kind of, I think it really drove voting. I don't think Biden's super, charismatic, right? Yeah, charisma kind of did anything to bring in voters. I just think that Trump's, the fear and anger towards him did. And I just don't know if that's where it's at. And I think the other part of that is Trump, I think, got like 61 million votes in 2016. I think he got like 74 million. So in 2020, which is only 4 years later. I mean, it's not like 10 years later.
Right.
And so, besides Biden, he got the second most votes of any presidential candidate in history. And so it's still a lot of votes. So there's clearly still a huge percentage of people out there who support him, right? Whether that could translate into, the states that he needed it to, or if that's more kind of situated into certain areas, I'm not sure how that would play out. But I do think that there is a real possibility he could pull it off. But I mean, I take, Gerard's point, and I think that, a lot of people, even on the right, are kind of tired of Trump and just all his bullshit, and they kind of want somebody who isn't insane. Right. So that's sort of where I stand on that.
Sure.
All right, let's get into the more controversial stuff. So, I mean, obviously, everybody pretty much has heard about what's happened in Memphis. Just a brief synopsis. If I get anything wrong, just let me know. But basically, the police say, probably a lie, that this guy Nichols, ran from them. Right, there was like some sort of chase.
So traffic violation. He was like ran a stop sign or a stop light in his neighborhood, I think.
Right, and they tried pulling him over and he took off or something. That's what they say. And then there was like an initial stop where things got a little bit bad, and then I think he tried running again, maybe on foot, and they ended up catching him and just beat the shit out of the guy for 3 minutes or something. And he was like screaming for his mom. Like, I mean, I haven't watched the video. Chuck said he watched it. I mean, just from what, like, hearing about it, I didn't really want to watch it.
Yeah.
It's just,
the
one thing that just keeps kind of like popping in my head is these are the people protecting us, right? These are it, right? There's nobody else out there. We don't have like some military police that trumps the police, right? That's it. That's our line of defense. Beyond that, nobody else keeps us safe. When those people turn into vicious, rabid murderers, like, what the hell do you do? And like, it's just so demoralizing to know. Like, I work with police 2 or 3 times like a week sometimes, but I work with them frequently. And in Rhode Island, we have, as Gerard knows, 75 police departments, right? We have so many, and like we live in the super small state, but we have like a police department for each town, even smaller towns. And so I work with lots and lots of police from all over the place, rural areas, urban areas, all that stuff. And I mean, in my experience, and talking to my coworkers, I think for most of them in their experience, I've never seen anything like this. I just haven't, right? And it's just, to me, like, just knowing that this kind of stuff happens is just, it's sickening for me. It really is infuriating, and I'll let you guys kind of talk to it, and then I'll bring up the other issue, which I've talked about online. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as I watched it, and it's worse than Rodney King. It's worse than George Floyd. It's basically at least 4 minutes, close to 5 minutes of just wanton assault by 4, then 5 officers on one person. And gosh, about a dozen times during this. And the one video that I saw, I did see a body cam video, which was less clear, but this was a surveillance video of camera lamp, like a light post, I guess, that showed. And you could see it. It was dark, but I mean, you could make out all the shapes. About a dozen times they screamed at him, "Give me your hands! Give me your hands!" You had 5 guys surrounding him, and on a couple of occasions they had their hands on him. If you can't, as 5 officers, subdue a 150-pound unarmed person to the point where you can cuff him without beating the shit out of him, you should be doing something else. There was never any attempt that I could see of the police officers to de-escalate. There was never any attempt of the police officers until the very end to subdue and cuff the suspect. Once he's cuffed, I mean, you're in no danger, obviously. There was never any attempt to do that. Any police officer that I know, when you have, the numeric advantage over a suspect at that point, you grapple, subdue, contain, cuff, and then pick him up and take him on. They were only interested in assault. They were only interested in punishment. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch because, I mean, they just, on a couple of occasions, even after they had him cuffed, they stand him up just so one of the others can punch or kick him. I mean, it's
thugs.
It's like the Sonny Corleone fight scene in Godfather 1, where he beats his wife's husband who smacked her in the streets there. It was that one-sided. I mean, of course, it's 1 against 5. What are you going to do? But yeah, that's second-degree murder. Again, maybe voluntary manslaughter, because I mean, you have to prove a certain amount of intent, I suppose. But yeah, and Nick, you said it's harrowing to think that in many cases that's what stands between us and the bad guys are bad guys. That's hard to reconcile. It's one of the many reasons I live in a house with lots of weapons, because I realize you cannot trust the other guy. Eventually the only person you can trust is yourself. But yeah, for most people, this is the veneer of civilization that we offer here in America, is this idea of effective policing, fair policing. And when that's gone, a lot of the underpinnings of this social contract that we're living in are yanked out from under us, and anything is possible. That's the scariest part.
So far, this looks to me to be the least controversial extrajudicial killing by police, in that I haven't seen, like, the people who are making excuses. Usually there's some population who are making excuses for what happened. This one, only on the very, very extremes of my
I've seen a few, but not many.
Right. It tends to be really on the extremes. And we seem to have this conversation a few times a year, every year. I served on a grand jury last year. So grand jury is different than a regular jury in that it multiple cases, investigations,
preponderance of evidence is your
right, because the end result of it is a vote, not whether or not somebody's innocent or guilty, but whether or not it should go to trial. So there was a case in Rhode Island it was a police brutality case, and I don't think it got that big, but I was on the grand jury where they went through, and I'll tell you, the state of Rhode Island spared no expense to bring in experts to make it as unbiased as possible. All the body cam footage talked to a lot of the police who were there, and you know what? It was this one guy around a lot of other police from a couple of police stations. Talking to them, they all spoke professionally, like. But that all it took was one guy there, and it ended up. I won't say how I voted, but I can say that it ended up not going to trial. It got voted down in that grand jury. For a few reasons that kind of get in the technicalities of things. And it was a case where, in my eyes, I saw a lot of police that were doing very impressively with what happened. It had been a situation where they didn't know if these people had live weapons and real ammo that were shooting at people, driving around. It was pretty bad. And by far, the police, they handled themselves professionally there. And it was one that got a little out of hand, and a sergeant came on scene, pulled him out, and So I say that to say that the whole polarized conversation of like police should be able to do anything or ACAB, obviously neither of those are true. Now, when situations like this happen, the conversation always just goes to the police. And I think that's the problem, because, police might play the role of defense, but really what they are for the country is they are the enforcement wing for the justice system. And if you don't have a good justice system, if you don't have a justice system that people believe in, then that invites vigilante justice. And I don't want to live in a world of vigilante justice, because while I don't think our justice system is great, it's better than vigilante justice. But police have been put into a lot of bad positions based upon everything from local to federal government. Whether it's local ordinances about the way that they are forced to handle the homeless, whether it was a national war on drugs that really defined how they had to operate in that realm. It was the police who were in the thick of that when mental institutions were shut down, federal institutions were shut down, and a lot of mental patients went to the street. It was police who ended up having to handle all of those. And I think there's times when that's been pointed out by the left, but it's pointed out poorly, the whole defund the police thing, which stupid. That was stupid. And even though you'd see the little cartoons that would come out and say, no, but when we say that, what we mean is allow social services to do it, allow mental health specialists to do, allow drug rehab specialists, allow, people who work with the homeless to do what they do. That's great. But when you sit there and you call it defund the police, it's going to mean something different to people who see that. And a big problem with the way the policing is done in the country is the way that the Supreme Court has been ruling. I'd say for about the last 20 years, they've been giving the police a lot more power. And one thing that the justice system is supposed to do is supposed to be part of the checks and balances and curb the power of the federal government. But they have not done that. Now police can do a lot of things, situations where, the Miranda warning, you don't need that. Being able to lie, the justifications they've had to pull people over. There have been cases in states where it's been, hey, if you're speeding, that's enough for a cop to pull you over. I get it. You going too slow, it's enough for a cop to pull you over. I get that. Then there was a case in Florida where throwing the speed limit was enough to make a cop suspicious enough to be able to pull somebody over. I think that's a problem. I think a lot of the way that policing is done, just when it comes to traffic, is wrong. It's turned into a money-making fiasco for police. And Chuck, what is the term when they're taking the money? Civil forfeiture. Civil forfeiture, out of control. More money has been taken from civil forfeiture than has been actually stolen. It's crazy. And all of these things just keep on being okay behind the police, by the court system, by elements of the justice system, by local governments and state governments, not even getting to the federal government, who are also doing the same thing. So when we talk about situations like that, and it ends up turning into lowest common denominator arguments, it's bigger, and it's more things that people need to start taking into consideration and talk about. I remember the Breonna Taylor one, where it was the SWAT team in Kentucky who went in there. To me, that's bad. All right, they did wrong, but somebody signed that. A judge somewhere signed off on that. Somebody with authority signed off on these things. Those people are never being brought into question. I think that's where a lot of the problem actually stems from.
So I kind of messed up here. So
the countdown that I'm seeing here, less than 1 minute.
Yeah, so I forgot to renew my subscription. So I'm just gonna send you guys something real quick. You're right. It's so bad. All right, I'll send you guys the link in 1 second.
Take care.